Hi everyone, this is Ross at Teacher Toolkit. You've downloaded this resource for tips of how you could get started with action research. My plan is to kind of take you through an action research model that you could use as a teacher. Consider this maybe being used as an appraisal process. And then for people conducting master's degrees, or NPQSL, so National Professional Qualification for School Leadership, or the middle leadership version, or people wanting to consider a PhD or a doctorate, so I'm in the middle of mine. I'm just going to share what I know and some practical tips for teachers who are time poor. My email address, any questions, support@teachertoolkit.co.uk, which you can see on the slide. Now, I'm not going to go through all the slides. You'll have all these to go through. I'm just going to signpost things. So this is a great action impact framework for research. Great for teachers. Start off with what do we want to know. So, for example, does the purple pen of progress improve outcomes? You then follow the methodology, and then you have to consider how you disseminate best practice. I'll come back to that point later. The verbal feedback project, so this is all on my site, 13 teachers, 7 state schools. Our question was, we wanted to challenge this written feedback. Why do we assume written feedback is the best form of feedback? Could verbal feedback make a difference? So that was our initial question. We then followed this cycle over 5 days together throughout one academic year, collecting 3 sets of data, 13 teachers, 7 schools, all different secondary school subjects. The other thing we have to consider is when we conduct our own research or appraisal, where are we on this kind of arrow here? Most of us want to do something to improve learning, and we have to have a framework to a degree of accountability. So we have to work out those types of questions also. When we start, my top tip is to look at this slide and consider bias stereotypes. So for example, what would you expect to hear? What would be unexpected? What's overheard or myths? And what would be contrary evidence, things that would kind of challenge our beliefs? So that's a good starting point. So if we go back to the verbal feedback model, in the top right, you'll see some questions to ask yourself during the ask phase. So this might happen in September, October of the academic year. When we reach innovation stage, this is probably kind of March period, so halfway through the academic year. We might want to make a tentative claim about some of the research that we've investigated, some of the strategies and new ideas that we've innovated. And then we might say, actually, the purple pen of progress does improve pupil outcomes. And then finish off the research, and then we'll reflect for stage 4. So that's a great model I would really strongly advocate for all teachers to use. It also works brilliantly for appraisal. A simple tip here would be in your appraisal policies, delete the word targets and replace it with the word question. And then suddenly you'll open up a lot of inquiry in your teachers and their professional development. And the 5-minute lesson plan, 1 million downloads on my site. This is another version for research. So I won't go through this. You've got 2 slides in there. Again, it's all on the website. It walks you through the whole slide. This would be a great tool to use for appraisal for teachers to use throughout the academic year. If you're conducting your own action research, such as a National Professional Qualification for School Leadership, so NPQSL, or an AMA, this might be a little model to consider. If we think about the inquiry question, how do you frame a good question? So here's some tips. Number 6 gives you types of ways to start your question. If I just give you my initial doctoral question, it was, how is social media influencing education policy in OECD countries? My supervisor immediately said, what, you're going to visit and tackle research in 36 countries. So I immediately narrowed this down to England. The next question was, define social media, so blogs, Twitter, Instagram. So obviously I can't research all of them, maybe some factors of each of them, but essentially I wanted to target Twitter and my blog. We then had to identify education policy. So I had to narrow this down to graded lessons, grading teachers in lessons, and my current focus, grading schools in England. So you can suddenly see my initial question just by narrowing and reducing some of the poor proxies has allowed me to come up with a better question to conduct research. How is Twitter influencing teacher agency, particularly with graded schools? on education policy in England. So I'm still working on the question, but you can kind of get the idea. Here's some tips here of what makes a good question. Open-ended, not using closed questions, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to come out my slides. 6 tools that I regularly use, 1 or 2 that you should all know about. The Teaching and Learning Toolkit, so it's going to load up here, Education Endowment Foundation in England. So you go to EEF, type EEF in Google, go to the Teaching and Learning Toolkit, which is here. There are others. And then you've got essentially a great place to access lots of interventions, the cost, evidence strength, and the impact a month. If you go into any of them, you'll get a PDF summary. So it's very important to go beyond the headline. So here they are here. So that's tip number 1. Then we've got John Hattie. So lots of critique about John's research. Not many people know it's a meta-analysis, so it's research of research. You've got his 252 effect sizes here. Not a lot of people know this exists. And actually, if you scroll right underneath it all, there is a fabulous hidden PDF. I think that's the link. Let's just check. No, it's not. Bear with me. It's this little tiny word here. You've got it all in a much more manageable PDF. So effect sizes. So again, if you want to access in another form rather than the scale, a color-coded version here. Potential to accelerate student achievement. It's a good resource. So take a look at that. Now, Google Scholar is my key place for information. I've also got alerts set up. So in my profile, if I go to my alerts, let's see what I've got in here. I don't have it. I'm in the wrong account. Bear with me. I'm going to log into my Teacher Toolkit account. So I've got things currently on Virtual Staff Room, Teacher Voice, Education Policy. Notice I've got things in quotations as well. There's a reason for that. So anything that's published anywhere, the media, journals, I get an email alert, and I can change these, change the alerts, all sorts. Now, if I come back to Google Scholar, I'm just going to give you some tips. Verbal feedback, here we go. I want to research verbal feedback. I've got 1.9 million results. I can't read all those, so I want to go to the last year only. So it dramatically reduces to 27,000. I've got to be specific, so I'm going to use in England. So I've now got 16,000. I'm going to just add a few little simple research tips. So I'm going to put quotation marks. That means the research must mention these 2 words. It's now down to 1,000. Let's say I am a maths teacher, so I'm going to put that in quotations. It's now down to 72. So you get the idea. Another tip, where it's got PDF, these will actually download the PDF file, so I can see the research straight away. Okay, just wait for that to load. He says waiting patiently. I'm not going to wait for a PDF, so I'm going to come back. But where there's no PDF, so in this one, kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, this is behind a paywall or a publisher. Now, here is my top tip. Now, this is a hack. Now, I'm not currently I don't really know where I sit as an academic, studying from a doctorate at Cambridge, but I've discovered a PhD researcher in Belarus when I went to go and do some work in a school, and she's developed this website called Sci-Hub. It's been developed in Russia. Her belief is that knowledge should be free. I agree with this. And I believe if you copy the DOI or the title or the web address in here, and then you press open, you then enter the I'm not a robot code. Well, it didn't ask me that time, so there you go. I've downloaded the paper. So I've totally bypassed having to log in or have a university login or whatever else I need to do here to just access the paper. So that is my #1 hack for teachers. Now, Pocket, this is on my phone. I'm going to show you my website. It synchronizes to my phone. It downloads the document. So if I'm on the underground, or if I am on a plane, or if I'm in the park, it actually will read it to me also. So it downloads the data. I've always got access to it. I can add tags. I can archive things. I can share them on social media. So I've got loads of things here. So when I published Just Great Teaching, I had 350 articles saved here rather than in my email inbox. And it was a great way to manage things that I wanted to read on for another day. So it's perfect for research. Mendeley and Researcher app are just ways for me to conduct citations. And I'm going to come back to Google Scholar. let me just pop back there. So I know I'm flicking between lots of different things. I'll just do that. So Mendeley, once I log in, he says, sorry, I should have done all this before. Let's see if I can get logged in quickly. This will load all the articles, so academic papers, they're PDFs. So you can see them all here. And if I go to some that I have recently read, it allows me to, if I access a paper, you'll see I can annotate and add citations. So if I just scroll down, you can see anything that I've highlighted here and added notes. So things that I've been reading, again, it syncs to my phone, perfect for reading on the go. And if you're really wanting to get into detail with research. Now, if I go back to verbal feedback in terms of quotations, if I go to, let's just say I've used this top paper, this little quotation mark gives me this pop-up, and there's a Harvard referencing feature. So just copying and pasting this. There are other platforms you can use, but it's a really good way to just add your citation into your endnotes. So that's my 5 tips. So those 2 slides demonstrate that. This is just the Open University's Research and Practitioner Development Framework. This cycle allows you to kind of see and signpost where you currently are. So I am kind of still getting to grips with working as a researcher. I'm getting more confident. I'm now starting to develop ways of thinking, reflecting on theory and practice, which I'll come to now. So when we think of kind of a higher level of research, you've got on the left positivism, which is scientific approaches. On the right-hand side, you've got subjectivism. So things that teachers are a bit more comfortable with. So kind of action research, exporting data, looking at case study skills, observations of pupils, for example, for ethnography. And they're all defined there, so I'm not going to spend time explaining them to you, but they're there for you. Once we identify which type, so let's just say for me, I'm looking at grounded theory. I'm going to suck out all the data from my Twitter. I then have to consider what tactics or techniques I'm going to use. So some type of experiment, some type of document analysis. I may want to interview 1 or 2 Twitter users or do some observations through hashtags online. Once I've done that, I then need to consider how I will analyze. So I might do some coding, descriptions, develop a theory. And when we bring it all together, you can see here on this slide, this is, I guess, a slide that signposts all the mixed methods that you can use as a researcher. Now, I will probably be using mixed methods. Some researchers just use one. It's entirely your own choice. But for the teachers that were in my verbal feedback research, the colours there indicate what they did. So it allows you to kind of see where busy classroom teachers can conduct their own research, do it to a degree that is rigorous given the time constraints and the funding that they have, and actually contribute new knowledge in the field of teaching. Now I've created this into a research framework. It's a simple, just a mapping grid. So you've got all the strategies and methods on the on the left. Across the top, you've got the tactics and techniques in terms of the experiments, and then how you evaluate the data. So I hope that helps. Back end of the slides, things to consider about your bias and how you triangulate data. You've got a few templates here in terms of looking at the impact framework. So if I just pop back to that one, it's kind of taking that at a deeper level. So you've got a few kind of things to consider here in terms of your success criteria, your milestones, the changes, and how you're going to evaluate or know when you've reached your milestones. So a couple of things there. Now, I mentioned earlier, once you find your research, how do you share this? So I find on my travels, most teachers don't often have the confidence to speak in front of their peers because the schools don't create those conditions. So the 5-minute CPD plan is another methodology. Again, on my blog, you'll find it all articulated with examples. Once you've got your research, you might find you've got half an hour or an hour to share this with 20 or 200 people. I now do this in my daily life. So how can you share this in a meaningful way by scribbling some ideas? Lots of universities get teachers to share the research in a poster. So here's a simple template. RQ stands for research question. So the first question, so my one Twitter or the purple pen of progress. how you would break down all the different areas of your research on a one-pager. And then you've got some examples in here from schools and from teachers looking at trying to reduce marking and workload. So you've got different styles there. Now, to finish off, bit of theory. Pierre Bourdieu, French sociologist. Micro level's the teacher, meso may be the school leader, macro might be the whole school, micro might be your school, meso might be your town, and macro may be England, for example. So it's just looking at different perspectives, and it works the same with research. It's about changing your lens, changing your bias. Also reference Professional Capital by Andy Hargreaves and Michael Fullen, a great paper about building professional capital, allowing teachers to make their decisions, having a qualified profession, and allowing them to work together and be rewarded for doing so. One last thing, the Derby University have this research onion. It's fabulous. Now I've got a static graphic here. Let me just do a quick search just to finish off. If you find this and you find the onion, I'm going to see if I can find it now. Here we go. It's an interactive graphic. So if you're not sure what grounded theory is, for example, you find it on this graphic. There's loads of video tutorials. So there's grounded theory. I click it and I get a little video tutorial to explain it. A brilliant resource. So I'm going to finish off there. I hope you found that useful. Send me your ideas, send me your questions, support@teachertoolkit.co.uk, and let me know if you've got any other suggestions, or you want some help with some of the resources, or you would like me to critique your initial research inquiry question, or you're maybe a school leader who wants to allow your teachers to set their own appraisal targets. Wouldn't that be fabulous? Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you find it useful.